Welcome to the Legendary Comics 2020 SDCC at Home panel. We are so sorry we can't be with you in person, but we are so thankful for the fine folks at San Diego Comic-Con for the opportunity to connect with you. My name is Jan Jones, and I am one member of the Legendary Comics team. I'll be your host as we share updates about some titles you know about, and we have a few surprises that we can't wait to share with you. From visionary and inclusive YA stories to modern retellings of classic tales to supernatural adventure thrillers, our books reflect who we are and what we're passionate about. Join us for conversations with our amazing talent from around the globe as we share highlights and artwork and insights. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to our Webtoon portion of the panel. Joining us today are SVP of Publishing, Robert Napton, amazing writer, Richard Dinnick, artist superstar, Magda Price, and colorist extraordinaire, Enrica Angelini. Today we're talking about our amazing book, Rob, that will be coming to you on Webtoons in the fall, and I'll let the team take it from here.
So Richard, I'd like to kind of start with the background a little bit with you without spoiling anything, because this panel will come out before the comics, so we have to be careful not revealing any secrets. But if you could just talk about your approach to the characters, because it was really different and exciting, and I kind of upended the mythos a little bit.
So yeah, obviously with Robin Hood, the original IP, as it were, we've got Robin, who's, he's this tough guy who's back from the Crusades, and he's expert at a bow and arrow, and is a true leader of men, and blah blah blah. And it is all men, is merry men, and we have upended it a bit. So he's much younger, he's more hot-headed, he's more headstrong. He makes mistakes. He's not always fantastic at archery. We have Blondell, who is his mentor slash half-sister slash semi-love interest, and she is the one who kind of makes him find the calm and kind of make his shot literally count. And then we have Scarlet, who lends herself to being a kick-ass assassin, and I remember when we got the artwork through for Scarlet, and we saw Magda's fantastic inks, and then we saw Enrica's incredible colors as well. We were just like, that's a very exciting moment when we see Scarlet, who's been this kind of, what can I say? She's been a different look to her, and then she appears in her full regalia, in her full outfit, and it's very exciting.
So I want to, get our amazing art team into the conversation. Magda, when we saw your work, we were really excited because we just thought it was a perfect fit for this story.
I don't know, Rob it's a little bit difficult at times. I don't know if I could. I mean, Blondell has this huge patience with him. I don't know. I don't know what to say without spoiling anything. So I guess what I have to say is that I don't know. I'm really enjoying this story and the characters and stuff. He's a great guy. He's a little bit difficult at times, but he's a great guy. Yeah.
I want to get Aaron into the conversation now. So I would just love to kind of hear about your thoughts and approach. Obviously it's this very interesting kind of mashup world. So would love to hear your thoughts on your approach and to Magda's art as well.
I think my biggest inspiration is just trying to make it as fun and creative and interesting as what I read in the script is, because that's the feeling that I get, and I'm trying just to convey that into the sunny days or the dangerous dark nights that characters find themselves in. So I'm just trying to convey all of that into my colors and make the best of it.
That's awesome. Well, before we wrap up, I want to at least ask one fun question, and for the creative team here. If you could step into our version of Rob, which character would you step into and why? And I guess I'll start with the creator writer, Richard Dinnick.
Yeah, so I guess, okay, Rob, it has to be him. He's a pain in the ass. Somehow I relate to that. But yeah, I have to say Rob, just because he's on a journey like us all, and yeah, he hopefully he'll come out of it not being so much a pain in the ass.
Good answer. Magda, how about you? If you could become any character in the comic, who would it be and why?
I think I really like Blundell. Yeah, I think she's very cool. She's calm when no one else is and stuff. She's strong. I like her. I don't know, but there's something about her that I really really like.
So Aaron, if you could be any character in this story, who would you pick and why?
Well, I guess people who might have already seen the characters by now might think that Scarlet somehow isn't me. I just want to clear it's not me. It's not intentional.
It's going to be from now on.
I do like Blondel a lot. They're both very strong and determined young girls, and they have a lot of passion, a lot of fire in them. So I would say it'd probably be either a mix or one of the two, but I do really like how they are portrayed.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A big thank you to the Rob team for their hard work and for sharing their time today. Look for Rob on Webtoons in fall 2020. We are so proud of the work we do with Webtoons, so be sure to check out our other titles. Jessica Chobot and Erica Lewis's Supernatural Adventure Firebrand Season 1 trade paperback is in stores now, and Season 2 will be released in April of 2021. And coming this November, John Barrowman, Carol Barrowman, and Erica Lewis's historical meets modern fantasy tale Accursion will be available for the first time in print as a graphic novel. If you can't wait, you can read all of these titles for free online at Webtoons. Next, our rockstar editor, Nikita Kanakante, will be sharing more about her YA titles for spring of 2021.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikita Kanakante and I'm an editor at Legendary Comics. In this segment, we're going to be talking about The Heart Hunter, which is one of our young adult graphic novel titles that will be released in spring of 2021. With us today on the panel are Mikkel George, the writer of The Heart Hunter, and V. Gagnon, the artist of The Heart Hunter. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hello. Mikkel, I'm going to start with you. Could you tell us a bit more about The Heart Hunter and what your inspiration for the story was?
Yeah, so The Heart Hunter is sort of, I kind of call it a twisted fairy tale. It's kind of like a dark allegorical fairy tale, and it's set on an island where everyone's hearts are cursed to beat outside of their bodies, and they exist in jars that they have to carry around with them. And the only way to get off this island and to kind of start your life and kind of move on from this sort of island of stasis is by finding your soulmate. And there's a really popular tag on like Tumblr and like fan fiction sites that play around with like soulmate tropes. And I felt like nobody was talking about all the ways in which having a preconceived soulmate can really go wrong, and how that only satisfies like one certain type of love story, but really doesn't address all the myriad of ways in which we love and relate to each other in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that soulmate tag well. So one of the things that I know we talked a lot about was the art and what kind of visual style that we wanted for this book. And it took us a few tries, but finally we found V. And can you talk a bit about designing the world and what your research, did you do any research for it, or did you have any inspirations?
I did. Since we're sort of like existing in this whole realm of fairy tales, I started by looking at a lot of the Brothers Grimm and the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, specifically a lot of Golden Age illustration. And I was really interested with how different places address the same story. And that kind of led me down the rabbit hole into researching medieval Europe and all of the interesting connections that medieval Europe had with surrounding territories and how they all addressed similar problems and how they communicated with each other. And I kind of wanted to bring that sort of feeling of both diversity and cohesion into this story by basically shrinking this medieval world down into a tiny little island so that both the differences and the similarities were exaggerated and created this sort of fluid world of fantasy.
Yeah, it was great to see kind of your collaboration evolve too as well, because at first Mikkel's writing was a bit more like, this is what panel 1 has, and then as we get into the later scripts, she's just like, I trust you.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
That's exactly. It was fun having the first art pages done before I'd finished the last chapter of the script, because then I felt like I could really trust the artist. And unfortunately for you, just kind of would throw stuff at you like, this is going to be tricky, but you can do it.
Well, it's wonderful. I enjoy a challenge. And I love with the script. And
yeah, well, the problem is you never let me down, so then I just make it progressively harder.
That's very true. Seeing every page come to life was just amazing. When we got the pages in, it was awesome. Mikkel, I also wanted to ask you, could you describe a bit about the rules of the world and how our main character Psyche fits into this?
Yeah, so our main character is Psyche, and she is the titular character. So she is the heart hunter in the story. And heart hunters are people who are able to see the soulmate binds between soulmates, so they can tell who is soulmates with who. So the kind of premise of the book is that the king wants to hire Psyche to kill his soulmate so that he can keep living forever and not have to like leave the island, and he can kind of reign eternal. So yeah, but that's kind of Psyche's role in it, and a lot of the plot of the story is her kind of learning how to cope with this broken heart and her role in that, and figuring out if she can heal her heart herself.
Well, thank you both so much for being with us today. It's always fun talking to you both about the Heart Hunter. And thank you everyone for watching. We really can't wait to share this awesome graphic novel with you next year. For this segment, we're going to be talking about Lupino, which is one of our young adult graphic novels slated to be released in spring of 2021. On our panel today, we have our writer, James Wright, and our artist, Lee Bushka. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. So James, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a bit about Lupina and what inspired you to write the story?
Yeah, so it's because people don't know, Lupina is a story about a little girl named Lupa who's orphaned and found and raised by a wolf, and together they go on this quest for discovery and revenge. So you see Lupa as she grows up and learns more about her world, her origins, and the wolf Chorus is her protector, who kind of looks out for her as they journey along this path.
So Lee, I'd love to ask you about the beautiful art that we see in Lupina. How did you and James go about discussing the look of the book and sort of the color choices? And you initially start with black and white and introduce colors as we go along.
So we started talking about the city that the story starts out in.
Santorini.
Santorini, that's right. Sorry, I was thinking of Greece.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah. You're right. Yeah, and I did the line art by hand, so it's a mix of traditional and digital. And then I think when we decided in 2016 to print the first phase, to have it ready in time to take to New York Comic Con in 2016. So I thought that something more grayscale might be good, and then it just kind of worked out. So it was kind of all just figuring it out as we went.
All the color work is done by our friend Bex Bex Glendening, who is an incredible colorist artist based in the UK. And our letterer is Ariana Meyer, who has a number of credits under her belt. I'm so glad that she's able to join the book too, where she's actually designing different font styles for Lupa as she begins in civilization with her family, and then as she goes into the wilderness, it becomes more feral, even the way that she speaks. And that adds, obviously, all that adds to the flavor and the book itself. So the book wouldn't exist, obviously, without them either. So
you did mention chorus, but you obviously you can't have a Lupino panel without talking a bit more about chorus. Could you explain that relationship a bit?
Lupa has to go on this journey, and she can't do it alone. Obviously, the world is too big for her. But Chorus is there, not just as her guide, but as her friend. And that relationship, I think, is the core of the book for many reasons. Obviously, the closest analogy I can think of is Lone Wolf and Cub, which is the famous manga series. And this is literally that, except it's a wolf. It's an actual wolf, I guess, the idea.
So thank you both for being here with us today. Really
Sure.
Great talking to you. And thank you to everyone watching. We're really excited to share Lupino with you next year. Today we're going to be talking about Championess with our writers, Kelly Zikas and Tarun Shankar, and our amazing artist, Amanda Perez. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Kelly, can you talk a bit about how you discovered Elizabeth's story and what inspired you and Tarun to write this graphic novel?
Sure. Well, it began where all great ideas begin, with Tumblr. Tarun actually found this really brief little post one day talking about these female bare knuckle boxers, and I think it was specifically about Elizabeth Wilkinson, that were from the 1700s, and they were kind of talking about how, Elizabeth was this really popular fighter in her day, but then she was just absolutely buried by history and had really disappeared. So we thought this was fascinating, this whole niche we had no idea about. It just seemed like too fascinating a piece of history to really miss out on.
Tarun, can you talk a bit about your research into Elizabeth and what you were able to find and what kind of changes you made in the graphic novel?
I guess when we started researching, we found out like the only record of her are these advertisements in the newspaper where she used to challenge other fighters or other fighters would challenge her. And so I guess one of the first like gaps we filled out was that we decided to make her Indian, because there was like the British East India Company was there from the 1600s. Like Indians were in England, like getting stranded there or deciding to stay in the dock cities. We figured this would be like a good way to tell that story at the same time and kind of like brownwash Georgian England a little bit. Yeah, all those interesting things. So we kind of just incorporated what we could that kind of fit.
That's awesome. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about, since we have Amanda on our panel, is just the search for artists. And I know we all were in agreement that we really wanted a female artist on this project. So Amanda, can you tell us a bit about what made you want to be a part of this project?
I'm really interested in like stories that are grounded in reality, but they have like, that spin. It sounded so promising. My gut was just like, do it. And now that I've gotten to know Elizabeth, she's wonderful. She's such a well-rounded character. I've really grown to love all of them. So, it's just really important to me to like, tell a story with diverse characters and it was just the right decision.
Yeah, it was weird like having her in our heads for a pretty long time and then just like seeing Amanda's first drawings and we're like, yep, that's her. That's
Kelly, I also wanted to ask you a bit about Elizabeth's journey as a character in this graphic novel. What motivates her and what other supporting characters are there that you'd want to highlight?
Sure. She is incredibly talented at what she does. She is a wonderful fighter. And so we start the story with her really she's been doing these backroom fights in the alleys and pubs and making a little bit of money that way. But really, she wants to find respect. She goes to the most famous boxing school that she can. And then maybe I'll let Tarun talk about some of the characters she meets there.
Yeah, there's Elizabeth's older sister, and she's kind of like on one level the main person that she's fighting for. At the gym, there's the person who runs the gym is James Figg, who's also like an important figure for that time period. He's kind of considered like the father of modern boxing. James Stokes, he's another in our story. He's a male boxer at Figg's school, and he's the only black boxer there. So him and Elizabeth end up kind of being the odd ones out, and you have to read the comic to find out whether they continue hating each other and punch each other or come to an understanding.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all so much for joining me on this panel, and thank you to everyone watching. We really can't wait to share Championess with you.
Thanks to Nikita and her editorial teams. Be sure to check out our social channels for more updates on these titles, as well as The Witches of Silver Lake by Simon Curtis, that is coming up in 2022. We told you we had a few surprises in store for you, but I'll just let Robert Napton take it from here.
So we're really excited at Legendary Comics to announce a new project, Head Wound Sparrow. And I wanted to invite the creative team behind this graphic novel, which is coming very soon, to share a little bit about the project and talk about the story. So I first want to introduce everyone that is bringing Head Wound Sparrow to life. I'll begin with Oscar Isaac. And we have also Bob Johnson and John Alvey. We have Jason Spire and Brian Buccellato and Chris Ward. So this is the creative team that is hard at work on the graphic novel as we speak. Oscar, when I first met with you and Jason at Legendary, a couple things came across to me immediately, which was number one, your passion for Head Wound Sparrow and your passion and love of comics in general, which was really cool. We spent a lot of time talking about artists and writers you liked, and a couple of them were friends of mine. So it was cool to hear. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little about your relationship with comic books in general that kind of led you to this project.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, clearly you can see I really hate comics and anything having to do with comic books. I grew up as a big fan of comic books, and I remember me and my friends, we'd always imagine being able to create these things, and we'd even draw our own comic books, and so that just really and make our own stories. So that really informed me and throughout my life. And so I'd always kind of thought it'd be great one day to find a really interesting story and to put together a graphic novel. And my good buddy Bob and John, I've known them for a long, long time. We were in bands together in high school, and we're always we're making movies together, and always up to no good. And he's Bob in particular is an incredible writer, and he's always shared with me his stories, and he shared with me this particular story, Head Wounds, and I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was a great take on the kind of really on empathy, and so I was really excited by it, and I thought this might be really great as a graphic novel. So that's why we brought it to you, Robert, over at Legendary, and started those discussions. And I'm really, really excited about the team we've put together with Brian writing and Christian doing his incredible art. And I think that it'll be something that's totally unique and thrilling and weird, but is about something that's very real, which is how do you take someone, or I feel like a lot of people feel this way. How do you take somebody that feels like they've, because of their own personal grief or their own particular circumstances that they've lived through in life, have just closed up and are just not able to empathize with anybody else, particularly as people, someone like our character who has sworn to protect others. And how do you get that guy to empathize? And sometimes it takes a supernatural push to do that. So I'm really thrilled with what we're putting together and to share it with everybody.
Yeah, speaking of friends you read comics with, Bob Johnson and John Alvey, you guys have known each other quite a while. You shared some good stories with me when we first met about Oscar, Bob, and John, the early years, which could be its own comic, I guess. And Bob and John, I'd love to talk to you a bit about the story. You know, there's some really powerful things going on in the story and kind of where it came from. And I would just love to get into that part of the conversation with you about the origins of Head Wounds Sparrow.
It's okay if I start?
Yeah.
When we were kids, we hung out with Oscar and a lot of other people. It was a big group of creative people. And then we were constantly writing music, stories, all kind of stuff. Then I got really, really sick. I found out that I had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it didn't look good. Nothing was working. Oscar had, and John too, had the misfortune of seeing me going through those times. But nothing was working. And I was thinking, you know, I wanted to write. I've always wanted to write. Why the hell am I in an office just trying to make money and not really doing what I want? And so I started writing. It was on my bucket list to write something. And I wrote a lot right from the start. And eventually it was so exciting. I'd had some bites back and stuff, but it was so exciting when he finally got back with me and said, I like this character. And we talked about empathy. And so Leo basically comes from a forcing oneself. Now we use otherworldly images and things like that, but it's really Leo forcing himself to be a better person. And he's a bad person in the beginning. So it's a long way to go. I mean, it's a ride. And that's what the story is about. And the head wound part, I had a dream, and I'll tell you why. I had a dream that I got shot in the head and nobody could see the wound. And I was running from place to place begging these people to help me. And I was blood and I just knew I was going to die and nobody saw it. And they were all looking at me like I was crazy, kicking me out of stores and all kinds of things. But when you're sick with cancer or any other ailment that nobody can physically see on you, it's like having an invisible wound. It's like a wound that nobody can see, and it keeps getting worse. And the worse it gets, the less they see it, you know, and you feel like you're going to go crazy.
John, I want to get you in on this as well. Obviously, just hearing all that, you were along with Bob during this journey and developing the story and formulating it and taking those themes and kind of putting a story together. So if you could talk about that part of it for yourself and how it all worked.
I create characters. I world build. You know, I've been gaming all my life, tabletop RPGs, and that's how I got into it. You know, just working on characters and arranging things, that sort of thing. And it just got bigger and better. It's a really amazing story, I think.
Jason, I want to get you into this as well. You and Oscar came into Legendary, and we were lucky enough to connect. And what is it about this particular story that kind of spoke to you and the parts of it that you really responded to?
I think what I saw in this when Oscar gave it to me and said, I need you to take a look at this, I saw something original. Oscar and I read so much material, and I saw something original here of a world creation. So when this world that John created with Bob, and it grabbed me, and it just felt like something new and original that audiences would kind of clamor to. The mythology, I think, is incredible. And it's stuff that kind of we've all toyed with in different genres that Bob and John have figured out a way how to kind of create under one umbrella.
And I want to bring in the amazing Christian Ward. When the team really gravitated to your work, I was really excited because in a way, I think you're an unconventional choice for that specific type of story, and the guys can talk about that. But what is it about this that's was kind of appealing to you from an artistic perspective?
I mean, honestly, you guys all seduced me. I mean, it was that first kind of few Zoom meetings that we had when you were sort of telling me about the story and where it came from and what it meant and how it was about empathy, and it was just what came across when I was talking to you all was the passion. And so for me, it was a real, taking that passion and getting kind of hooked into the story and thinking, well, I would read this and I'd enjoy it. A lot of comics are great and really exciting, but they can be quite throwaway. And what I quite like about this is that we've got all that excitement, we've got all that pulpy kind of thriller elements, but it's nice to think we're actually trying to say something in the center of it. And that kind of gives it a bit of meaning and that gives it a bit of weight. And that's why I wanted to be involved.
I mean, I remember, I think the very first thing you said was, I just want to make sure you're talking to the right person.
Yeah.
I think maybe you have me confused with somebody else.
True story. True story.
That's why I was like, this is our guy.
Sure. When the story starts, Leo is a cop in New Orleans. He works in the narcotics division, and he is a dirty cop. He does things he shouldn't. He is a carouser. He's divorced. He has a personal trauma that he won't acknowledge. And at a certain point, I guess the forces of good have had enough, and they step in, and they sort of put this curse or this stigmata upon him for him to suffer the wounds of those he was sworn to protect. And that basically sort of opens up this world to larger crimes and things going on around him that he's going to have to solve. Otherwise, he'll never get some peace, and he'll live in pain. And, sort of peripherally, it's a pain that no one else can see, much like Bob was talking about. So he looks like a crazy lunatic who's running around like nobody can see this terrible thing that's happening to me. Woe is me. And his only medicine is to do the right thing. And so that's kind of how the story starts. And without giving away more details, that's the world that we jump into with Sparrow. I did want to sort of get you guys to talk a little bit about the quote about the sparrow, because I think there's something about that quote, because that to me that made everything make sense to me as I was writing Leo and the character.
When a sparrow falls, God is even aware of a sparrow falling, and a sparrow, in the Bible, it's like a rat. It's like the most worthless bird or animal, right? So he's even aware of when a sparrow dies. And then Hamlet uses it later as well. In Hamlet, he says, yes, that there's providence even in the fall of a sparrow, that there is meaning in that's been ordained for a very specific reason. So so this guy is a sparrow. Leo is just worthless. He might as well not exist, really. And that is why he is chosen.
I want to thank the panelists for talking about Headwound Sparrow. It's a graphic novel. We're extremely excited about it, Legendary Comics, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it in the days and months to come. So I want to thank everyone for your time, and thank you, Comic-Con. Thank you, Comic-Con at home. We will see you in person at some future date.
That totally just happened. I might need a minute to recover. Seriously, though, thank you to the entire Headwinds team, and keep an eye out for more updates. Now onward to our October offerings. And now moving on to October, we are here to talk about Bram Stoker's Dracula starring Bela Lugosi. Today we have the entire editorial, art, and writing team. We have Elle Gehring, SVP Robert Napton, Lynn Lugosi Sparks, and Carrie Gamble.
So Lynn, I was wondering if you and Carrie could just briefly kind of touch on how it all sort of started as a conversation, I guess.
Well, I think Carrie, when you first brought the idea of the Bela Lugosi's Tales from the Grave to my dad as a comic book idea, I think probably that's when we first started talking about you wanting to do that, and we just tackled the comic first, and was waiting for the opportunity to get this done. And so I'm really happy for our family that we have the opportunity to do the graphic novel.
Yeah, I think the idea came from your dad originally.
Oh.
I approached him about doing some comics featuring Lugosi as the host of the horror stories, and he said that he had always wanted to see a version of the novel done with his dad's likeness in it, since it was so different from the movie. So the idea originally, I think, came from Bela Lugosi Jr.
Wow, good. I didn't remember that, but I'll have to give him props.
So Elle, I want to welcome you to the conversation.
It's a great experience working with Dracula. Having Carrie is a very great artist as well, working with Robert. So, I'm very honored and ever grateful working with that project because, it's a classic one and it will be there forever.
Well, for me, I'm not an artist. So as we've had the privilege to see the work in progress, what I've told Robert, and I can tell you now, it's so amazing, the art that you've done, because I can look at your pages and tell the story. It hasn't even needed words so far.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. So I'm glad you brought that up, because this is not just a comic imitating the movie. This is as though Bela Lugosi is portraying the character again in a new way.
While he is portraying Count Dracula as Bram Stoker describes him, the art still captures that magnetism, the sensuality that Bela Lugosi had and brought to his portrayal on stage and in the Universal film. So I think it's just a really great combination. I think fans are going to love it.
It is cool, and Dracula in the movies never had fangs in the old days. Okay. So you see the Christopher Lee movies and the later ones, they always have fangs. Yeah. So it's cool to be able to put Lugosi as Dracula, but have the fangs in the mouth that you never saw when he was in the movies or in the play and things.
I wonder how, a few times during this process, I wonder how he would feel in 2020, almost 90 years later, that he's remembered for this role. And do you think that would surprise your grandfather at this point?
Well, I think it would. I have heard my dad mention several times that, at the end of his dad's life, he thought he had been forgotten. So he could not have imagined this.
Cool. Well, I'll throw it to Jan to wrap up.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. The book is available for pre-order now, so be sure to get your copy. Well, it's coming out in October. Hi, and we are back for one more October update with SVP Robert Napton to talk about a very special book we have planned.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the Trick or Treat 10th anniversary collection, which is going to be coming out in October. This will be the first time that the original Trick or Treat comic, which was released when the movie was released, an adaptation of the movie written by Mark Andreyko and featuring, incidentally, some of the first work of artist Fiona Staples, will be combined with Trick or Treat Days of the Dead, which was the sequel graphic novel we did at Legendary Comics. So we're bringing both the comics together into a deluxe hardcover graphic novel edition to celebrate the anniversary of Trick or Treat. We will have a new introduction from director Mike Doherty and some other cool extras. So for fans of Trick or Treat, this will be the first time the comics have been united. And we think it'll be a great collection everyone should check out in October.
Absolutely. And we, Robert and I especially, are huge fans of Halloween. So we are so excited that the month of October is going to have a lot of horror offerings for you guys. The book is available for pre-order at your local comic book store or online bookseller. So please be sure to check it out. Besides our original titles, we are always hard at work expanding the worlds from our movies and shows that you love. Our MonsterVerse titles take you deeper into Skull Island and into the inner workings of Monarch with Titans Kong and Godzilla. Explore the worlds beyond our galaxy with the Robinson family and Lost in Space Countdown to Danger, Volumes 1 through 3. Take a dark journey with Vignette and Philo into Carnival Row. Solve a mystery and maybe save the world with Tim Goodman and a Pikachu addicted to caffeine in the graphic novel movie adaptation Detective Pikachu. And Pacific Rim Amara and Pacific Rim Aftermath take you into a reality where kaiju and Jaegers are just a part of everyday life. Thank you again for joining us today. A big shout out to Richard Starking and his team at Comicraft for all of their fantastic lettering work. You guys make us look really good. You can find current titles and upcoming books on sale or available for pre-order at your local bookstore, comic book shop, or online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Follow us on our social channels for extended interviews, art previews, and more. Stay safe, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.